Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. Today, we're going to be talking to an author, Jonathan Stutz, who, along with his co-author, Eddie Pate, have written a great book, Daily Practices of Inclusive Leaders. We're going to be focusing on internal culture, how the EX, the employee experience, can help and support a great customer experience. So a couple of quick things before we dive into the interview. If you have an amazing customer service story that you would like me to share, or if you have a question you'd like me to answer, just reach out to me on any of the social media channels because I am pretty much everywhere. And be sure, if it is a question, to use the hashtag AskShep. I'll either answer the question right there in the social channel, on this show, in my newsletter, or my TV show, Be Amazing or Go Home. And episodes can be found on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Prime, or just go to beamazing.tv. That is beamazing.tv. All right, let's jump into the interview. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Shep.
So excited that we are going to be talking today about the employee experience, which I have been writing for years and years. What's happening on the inside of an organization is felt on the outside by customers. So really, if you ask what comes first, the chicken or the egg, or what comes first, employee experience or customer experience, I believe while you have the end in mind, you got to go back and start with what's happening inside the company, and that's the employees.
Absolutely, for sure. We advocate focusing on the employee experience to improve the customer experience.
Amen.
Absolutely. We feel like there's this one-to-one correlation, employees that feel connected to their manager, to their coworkers. Those folks feel, as I like to say, they feel seen, heard, valued, and understood. It will give more of themselves to the organization and to the customer as a result of that.
And I would also add that when that happens, the trust between the employee and leaders, managers, supervisors, and even fellow employees dramatically goes up. And trust is so important. It eliminates a good chunk of churn, meaning you keep your people longer, just like you want to keep your customers coming back. You want to keep your employees coming back tomorrow and next year and the year after.
That's right. I mean, the organization will have higher retention rates, and by staying longer, those folks that are interacting with the customers will have greater institutional knowledge. And then when employees feel that connection to their manager, that the manager kind of has their back and is looking out for them and understands who they are as a person, they feel what we call psychologically safe. They'll feel they can be their authentic selves, free and comfortable to take, more creative risk, opening up avenues for greater innovation that all positively affect the customer. Employees that feel they belong, that work in a kind of a I've got your back, you've got my back environment, they'll be happier and more productive. And this happiness will actually trickle out to impact the customers in their positive experiences. Customers will hear it in the employee's voice, their motivation to solve customer challenges, to hear their ideas, be more responsive. Basically, in essence, employees will take on I'm sure you've read about this, the founder's mentality. They'll feel and experience that excitement and motivation in their exchanges with the customer, and they'll be happy and motivated people.
The other day I was on an airline. I won't tell you the name of the airline, but their initials are AA. And that's either for Anonymous Airlines or American Airlines, which actually
Right.
was American Airlines. And one of the flight attendants, I mentioned to her, I said, by the way, there doesn't seem to be any water working in the lavatory. And she had this horrified look on her eyes, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And she said, thank you for letting me know. Minutes later, she had a plastic bag filled with wipes, like wet wipes, little packages.
For
And
sure.
she put them out and she said, this is my personal stash, but we got to make this right for all of our passengers. And I thought to myself, now I know those don't cost very much, but that's not the point. She went into her luggage, pulled out her own product that she had bought and was giving it to the employer. I guarantee she's not going to go back to the employer and say, you owe me $2.44 for a bunch of wipes.
Right.
I just think that was such a display of exactly what we're talking about. She loved her company enough to want to do something a little bit above and beyond that was actually out of her own pocket. So,
and she thought creatively. She was creative, and she took ownership for the problem. She didn't just say, "Oh, that's that's too bad. We'll have to get on that right away when we get back on the ground."
Well, we can go down this road and keep talking about wonderful stories, but really the reason I wanted to have you on the show is to talk about your new book, Daily Practices. Let me say it again. Daily Practices of Inclusive Leaders. It's a guide to building a culture of belonging. And we're so familiar today with everybody talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, what you've done is you flip the letters around just to confuse us a little bit or to make more sense. I'll let you tell us it's probably to make more sense. And that is, you say it's IDE, and that is, well, I'll let you explain it. I don't need to explain it. It's straight out of your book.
For sure. We intentionally prioritize the I and focus on inclusion first, because first of all, if you think about having people into your own home, right, you want to make it a warm and welcoming place so that when people come through that door, maybe you've cooked some good cookies, they smell good, or there's some good food on the stove, the house smells good, you've probably cleaned, tidied up a little bit. People come in, they feel comfortable, you welcome them, maybe give them a hug, tell them that you're great, it's great to see you. That is creating an environment where people feel welcome and they feel safe and they feel a connection to you when they walk in that door. So the same is true in your company. You want to create a culture, an environment where people feel safe and welcome and comfortable to be themselves. And when you do that, you have a higher opportunity to keep those employees, to attract employees when you have a reputation as an inclusive employer. And so it just works really well when you have this inclusive environment to create a culture where people feel they belong. So that's why we focus on the I first, inclusion. The challenge when you focus on just diversity and just hiring people of different backgrounds and cultures and experiences, if you focus exclusively on that, you're going to end up what we call as a leaky bucket. They're going to come in that front door and they're going to go right out the back door. And that's not what you want. It's expensive, and it certainly doesn't drive the bottom line to where you want it. So inclusion first, then diversity, and then you're working always to this end goal of justice or equity. And equity is all about people getting what they need in order to be successful. And that's understanding people, at a deeper level, understand their goals, aspirations, et cetera. But that's why we focus on that I first.
Yeah, very interesting. So just like I always tell my clients, in order to have a good customer experience, it starts with leadership, defining what it is, communicating it, and then starting to roll out and training everybody. But it does start at the very, very top. And I've been in rooms with clients where there's 3 executives and one of them says, I'm still not quite sold on how customer experience is going to really drive more to our bottom line than we currently have. And I'm thinking to myself, well, and actually I've said it out loud. Once you are on board, let's go ahead and start, because we're walking into failure if we can't get unanimous decisions on this. I believe, after reading through your book, that this is the same thing when it comes to your version, IDE, that it starts with the leadership, clear set of goals, expectations, boundaries, perhaps. So expand on that for me, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely starts with the leader, and it starts with the leader creating connection with the employees. And so when you think about leaders, and not just the most senior-most leader, but all leaders, everyone who's a people leader, a peer leader, it doesn't even have to be a formal authoritative role. We all should think of ourselves as leaders and connecting with people, but certainly the formal leadership at the top of the organization and then working itself down is creating that connection. And one of the daily practices that we promote is this idea of what we all do in our meetings with our employees is the one-on-one. But I think the one-on-one is overlooked as just a massive opportunity to create this connection and this sense of connection with the employees, that if you spend the time getting to know your people at a deeper level, beyond what's on their resume, beyond what maybe they have on social media or what have you, or what they may share in side conversations, getting to know what their goals and aspirations are, their skills and experiences, and what they all of what they bring to the table. And not just that, but what you talked about in your last podcast about this importance of empathy. So empathy starts, and the way you develop this empathy is about creating the leader themselves being vulnerable and sharing things about themselves. None of us can come to work every day at 100%. We all have things going on in our lives, and they may be affecting our performance at work. So there is going to be this bit of a roller coaster of what you bring every day, and how even you might not be feeling well, or you may have gotten a ticket on your way to work, you may have had an argument with somebody, or you're dealing with buying a house or going through a divorce or death of a family member, a sick family member. All these things we all deal with. So leaders being vulnerable and sharing with their employees what's going on in their lives, and that they can't necessarily be 100% in that week or in that day, that communicates to the employees that it's okay for me to share with my manager or my leader what I'm dealing with. And they will know that their leader will then be empathetic with them and share and just have that connection as humans, demonstrating that humanity helps create that connection. So the one-on-one meeting, and there's lots of things you can do. We talk about in the book about like being on time, sets the expectation that this meeting's important. Even taking notes and showing that what they're saying is important, and leaning in and putting away your phone and shutting your laptop, and just focusing on the employee, and asking them even vulnerably, like, how am I doing for you as your manager? What could I be doing better? Are you getting what you need? So these are all tips that are in the book about the inclusive one-on-one and creating that connection with all your employees that everyone will benefit from.
Yeah, one-on-ones, extremely important, no doubt. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some other tips that are coming straight out of the book, but I have a question that you might be able to answer that has to do with companies that are hiring for quota to be able to say their DEI or IDE. I feel they're sometimes just checking a box instead of really getting down to what it means to have true diversity and equity within an organization. We're going to talk about all that and more. Again, the book is titled Daily Practices of Inclusive Leaders by Eddie Pate and Jonathan Stutz. We're talking with Jonathan. This is Amazing Business Radio. Don't go away. We will be right back. One of my favorite sayings is that customer service isn't a department, it's a philosophy. And it's a philosophy that must be embraced by everyone in the organization all the time, and that's 24/7. So if customer service is important to you, and I know it is, then you will love our virtual training, the ultimate on-demand customer service and experience training program that you can access anytime, anywhere. Now, the course content applies to everyone, regardless of position and responsibility, from senior executives to the most recently hired and everyone in between. You'll discover tips, ideas, and strategies that won't cost your company a fortune, but will produce what I call moments of magic, those positive experiences, and it will happen at every level of your organization. So go to Customer Service VT. That's V as in virtual, T as in training. That's customerservicevt.com. It's time to get customer focused.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio. We're with Jonathan Stutz, who is the president of Global Diversity Partners and the author of Daily Practices of Inclusive Leaders, a guide to building a culture of belonging. And we're talking about really all things related to DEI, or as he likes to say it, IDE. I want to start with the question. It's probably a loaded question, but I'm thinking about it because the conversation came up recently that some companies are more or less just checking a box to make sure they hit quotas. They're not hiring necessarily the best people. They're hiring to make it look like they're inclusive and diverse and care about people. And I would love your comment on companies that do that type of thing.
Yeah, thanks, Shep. Well, first off, this work, doing inclusion, diversity, and equity work, is really a business issue, and it's a business strategy, and it's about creating high-performing, highly effective teams. We've all had that sense of being on, hopefully you've all had that sense of being on a championship team, a winning team, or a special team in your career, when everybody feels connected, they feel valued, they feel really they each got each other. It was kind of this, as I said earlier, kind of a you've got my back, I've got your back culture. That's what this work's really about. We're trying to solve some of the world's most difficult problems. There are adaptive learning problems where no one person has the answer. And if you think about artificial intelligence, as your last guest was talking about, the these are tough problems from a privacy, security standpoint. There's a lot of unknowns. We're in a new area, and we need all hands on deck. And it's a global problem, so it's going to be different in different parts of the world. So we need all those different perspectives and backgrounds and experiences to help us solve these problems, because no one person has the answer. So that's the business case for having this diverse, inclusive environment where everybody gets what they need in order to be successful. Now, the dialogue and the narrative around DEI, as it's called out there in the media and in some of the political realms, has been hijacked. It's been positioned as something that it's not. That it's if I win, somebody else loses. And really, we all benefit from this diverse, inclusive environment. So that's a key point to make when.
What do you mean by that? If I win, someone loses, meaning?
Well, it's like, this idea that if I get promoted, it's because I'm Black or because I'm a woman or because I'm gay, and I got that promotion because of my race or gender or sexual orientation or ability. Physical abilities. These are not the reasons people want to get promoted. Nobody wants to get promoted because they're Black or because they're gay or because they have some identity difference. We all want to get promoted because of our capabilities and our good work that we've done, that we've earned it. Now, there is a case for having diverse perspectives in a leadership team and looking at bringing that diversity in the fold. But you're always going to hire the right person. And there's a lot of great work out there being done, people that do the work that I do, diversity professionals that know and understand. Probably the lion's share definitely understand that this is about building high performance teams and building cultures of belonging where everybody can be successful. But there is a bit of malpractice out there. There's a little bit of folks who don't understand exactly what it's about, or leaders who don't have diversity professionals who understand the discipline at a deep level, and will hire somebody because of they're a homogeneous workforce, and they think they need to bring in somebody with a different background than what they have on the team. You always want to hire the best person. You should always cast your net wide, as we say, to have a diversity of candidates. We recommend focusing on a good diversity outreach strategy, so you're bringing in a diversity of candidates. And even on the other side of the table is having diverse interview panels. So when you're interviewing candidates, ensuring that you have diversity in the people that are doing the interviewing, because two reasons: they're going to bring that diversity of thought and perspective to the table as they're interviewing candidates, but then candidates themselves will see that diversity, and they'll feel, especially if they're Black or if they're what we call an only one, they're somebody who brings, they're historically, we say, underestimated, historically oppressed, or historically marginalized. If they see somebody on the interview panel that is like them, they're going to feel that a connection to that individual. You're going to see higher acceptance rates and offers for jobs. And they're going to feel like this company gets it. They're going to have those conversations about what's the culture here? What's the environment? Am I going to feel safe? Am I going to feel this is a place I can achieve my personal goals while working on the larger organizational goals? So diversity is, it's not about quotas. And quotas were tied to affirmative action. And even that was never about quotas. It was about having goals for diversifying your workforce. But it was always about casting your nets wide, creating a diverse selection of candidates, and then always hiring the best candidate. Always hiring the person who's best for the job.
If you look at the general demographics of the United States, let's start here. I mean, but it's worldwide, but let's just use the US. There is a certain percentage of whites, Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, go on and on. And if you were to have, let's say, 100 people in your company, it's probably doubtful that you're going to match up to the demographic of the U.S. It would be nice to think you are, but I think if you did, people would still look at that company and say, well, they're not equitable. Look at how few of these, whatever, people, race, religion, et cetera, are.
Sure.
But if you take a look at really what the percentage of people that are out there living in the country today, it's probably right on target. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, it comes back to being a business issue. You want to have a workforce that mirrors your customers. This comes back to the customer experience. How are you going to understand the needs of your customers if you don't have a workforce that mirrors those customers, to have their perspective represented and heard. So many companies that struggle with this, with diversifying their workforce, they will have employee resource groups to create community of Black employees, of women, of gay employees, et cetera, people with disabilities. And they can tap into those employees to get that perspective, to get their view on how this is going to affect the customer from a customer service perspective, from a policy, even internally, from compensation policy, promotion policies, family leave policies, those things of that nature. So having those perspectives in the workforce certainly makes a huge difference. And like I said, it's a business issue.
Yeah, it's great. So we're running out of time. I want to jump into the book for a moment. And I know that, you make it real clear. This is a guide for leaders to take a look at and actually get it's a playbook, if you will, a handbook that everybody should grab and devour. And, if you could just pick out 2 or 3 really great ideas that would be universally accepted, what would they be?
Well, one of them is, and this everybody grapples with this, is having really tough conversations, having these challenging conversations. We talk about it, converting those into meaningful conversations. And how do you have those in the moment when somebody says something that's inappropriate or awkward, or you just want to stop and reflect on what's being talked about and maybe redirect a little bit? We call this the pause button, and we recommend companies adopt this as part of their culture, that when you're in the moment and there is something that's being said that you really feel like you're watching something happening on the sidelines, but you really want to jump in and be involved in it, but you don't really know how to stop it or put a timeout on the agenda, we say, hit the pause button. And everybody, after a period of time of using this, especially when leaders start to use it and we call it dropping a pebble. They drop a pebble with this idea of saying, hey, let's hit the pause button, and other people, and that's basically an opportunity to have the conversation in the moment. Let's stop and reflect. Let's be a little introspective and think more critically about what was just said, and talk about it so we can get an understanding of why that's not maybe the best approach, or maybe be offensive to somebody. And this can be used I'll give you a specific couple examples. Let's say you're in a meeting, and women, by the way, get interrupted in meetings way more frequently, like a 3-to-1 ratio than men get interrupted in meetings. So you're in the meeting and you're seeing a woman getting interrupted. You can say, hey, hold on a second. I want to hit the pause button. And everybody stops. They know what that means. And you say, hey, Bob, that was a really, I appreciate you jumping in here, but Mary Lou wasn't done with what she was saying. Let's let her finish what she's saying. And I'm sure your idea is brilliant. We'll come back to you, but let's let her complete her thought and hear what she has to say, because she brings a really valuable perspective too. That's the pause button, right? And it can also be used with one person has an idea, they share it, and then 10 minutes later, somebody else shares almost the exact same idea, and that gets the credit. You can hit the pause button and say, hey, Jamal, that was a great idea. But I remember like 10 minutes ago, it was said by Valerie, and we should give credit where credit's due. You don't necessarily want to throw the person under the bus, but you do want to redirect and shine that spotlight on the person who had the original idea and give credit where credit's due. And you can do that in a way which is not going to throw, him under the bus. You can say, hey, great idea. It really builds on what Valerie said earlier. So let's have you two work on this, or let's talk about it as a group here and hear what Valerie has to say about that.
All right. I love the pause button. I'm not going to interrupt you, but we are almost out of time. So let's give one more amazing nugget out of this book that everybody needs to pay attention to.
Sure. So everybody's heard of SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. So what we recommend is using SMARTIE goals. And so anytime you're setting a goal for your organization or an individual, think of it as also inclusive and equitable. So SMARTIE. And so inclusive and equitable added on to the SMART goals. So you're looking at any goal you're setting for the organization through the lens of, is it inclusive? How is it going to impact everyone in the organization or the customer inclusively? And then, is it equitable? Is it actually fair? Are we giving people actually what they need in order to be successful? So that's the other one, is the SMARTIE goals. And by the way, our website, inclusivepebbles.com, has videos and some of our podcasts that we've been on, has a blog. and lots of information to help folks. So there's lots of other ideas there that people can tap into and even order the book there, of course.
Well, I think everybody can tell by listening to you that this book is a practical guide. It's not dense, in that I love stories, and you give great examples throughout the book to illustrate the point, just like you did with the pause concept. And this would be a book that all leaders, managers, actually everybody should understand what this is all about. So even though the book is Daily Practices of Inclusive Leaders, I think it would be important for an entire workforce to understand how leaders are thinking. So
and
Daily
by the way,
Practices of Inclusive Leaders. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say, to your point, because you made it so well, is that the book is lined up by the employee life cycle. So you can literally go to a section on recruiting or hiring or talent development, talent management, promotions, and you can find a daily practice to apply right then. So it literally can sit on your desktop tabbed and, earmarked, to go to that section when you're working on that particular part of the employee life cycle.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I've got a new interview coming in. Hold on, let me check out page 79. Oh, perfect. Oh, I love it.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, this is why we call it Amazing Business Radio. Then, Jonathan, thanks for being on the show. Awesome ideas today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio, and we will be back next week with another interview. Until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.